You cannot go into entrepreneurship with a 9-to-5 mindset. Let's jump straight into it. As you see from the title of this episode, I will be exploring and breaking down 5 tips I wish I knew or did before I quit my job to become a full-time entrepreneur as a transaction coordinator. So before you quit your job to start a business, do these 5 things. Have reserves, liquid cash, and FU money in the bank. Yeah. Travel. Take a break. Take a week. Take 2 weeks off. Trust me, you won't regret it. Make sure all of your logistics are in order. Hire help as soon as possible. And finally, number 5, make sure your mental health is intact and you are listening to your mind and listening to your body. So those were the 5 things I wish I did before I quit my job to embark into this entrepreneurial lifestyle, into this business world as a solopreneur. Now let's break it down. Reserves, liquid cash, FU money. The thing we all have in common is that we need money to survive. Other than the breath that we breathe, the world that we live in, or at least the country we live in, requires a lot of money to survive. And one of the things that I actually did do prior to quitting my job that saved me mentally was having enough reserves in the account to know that if I were to quit my job today, at least I'll be good for the next 3 to 4 months this year. So I can use that time to update my resume, take courses, learn, build new skills, new habits. And I could use the money that I have saved to pay for my bills. And when I mean 3 to 4 months saved, I mean enough to pay my bills as well as have fun and have a little bit extra cash to use for just in case of emergencies. So I used the year prior to quitting my job to save enough cash to do those things. And I probably would have had a lot more, but I'll get into that in the next step, and you'll understand why it ended up being only around 3 to 4 months of reserves, which honestly is a lot. I'm not saying that is a little bit of money, but it is scary when you first quit your job and you don't know where your next check is going to come. Life of an entrepreneur, right? Am I right? So with that said, have your FU money so no one can tell you what to do or when to do it, because you have enough money to just roam the world as you see fit during this time period. Which also brings me to my next point, traveling. Now, this is something I did not do and I wish I did before I quit my job. It wasn't even a thought because I was so concerned about all these other things and how was I going to quit? When was I going to quit? What does this mean? I also had some family, personal things going on that drove me and accelerated this process a lot faster versus me kind of leaning on my own self to decide when to do this. God and the universe had other plans and was like, we're going to do this now. So thankfully I had my reserves, but the one thing I do wish I took into consideration before taking on my first official client, which ended up being my biggest client to date, was I wish I took a vacation or at least time off where there was a gap between my 9-to-5 and this new entrepreneurial life. I needed a break, honestly. Like, I had worked at my previous job for 14 years and overnight I'm my own boss. Like that's not the most healthy approach to a transition, in my opinion. If you can handle that, more power to you. But looking back into my first year of being an entrepreneur, I needed that break in between. And that's something I did not give myself, which kind of spiraled into the next phases of my journey. But I'll get into that in the later steps. But honestly, take time off, plan a vacation, go somewhere you've always wanted to go, treat yourself, or just take advantage of the fact that you have time to not be responsible for a transaction, for other people's deadlines. You're not having to check your emails. Just give yourself that space to just decompress and to get your mind right. Logistics. Now, this is the part that you want to take care of sooner than later. And remember, I mentioned earlier, I probably would have had more reserves, but it was this part that kind of threw me for a loop, that took some of those reserves away. But thankfully, I had enough reserves to cover these things ahead of time, because had I not, I don't know what position I would have been financially, or if I would have not followed through with this plan. So your logistics, you want to handle these things early and as soon as possible, because it takes time for them to process, it takes time to set up, it takes time to be approved. So keep in mind when you're getting, what type of healthcare are you going to have? Are you going to hire or have an attorney or a CPA on a retainer, or are you going to hire them full-time? What do you need as a business person? Your checklists, your programs, your software, subscriptions, DocuSign. I'll get into all of the programs that I use in a separate video, as well as on my social media. So go ahead and follow me across all social media platforms at Transaction Care. Very simple, easy to find me. I will be dropping exclusive content on those platforms, as well as here on YouTube, breaking down everything and explaining it to you and making it as easy as possible for you to understand this new life and this job as a transaction coordinator. So back to logistics. You want to have all of these things in order and paid for and added to your budget, so then that way you understand where your money is going and you're not just blindly spending money and then you look up one day and you have nothing left. So take care of having a profit and loss statement, talking to a CPA, talking to attorneys, especially if you're going to be hiring additional help. You want to make sure all your contracts and agreements are in order. Are you going to incorporate? Do you have a website? Professional emails, newsletters? There's so many things to consider. I would definitely explain that. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I would be more than glad to break it all down even into smaller pieces for you and take it from there. So next up is hiring help. Of course, starting out, maybe you don't have this in the budget quite yet, but one thing I wish I had done earlier was to set milestones and goals for myself, meaning when I hit X amount of sales or X amount of money each month for 3 months, that is my cue to hire help. Or when I have X amount in my reserves, I will hire a part-time assistant, or I will hire a social media coordinator. Whatever area in your business is taking up so much of your time that isn't necessarily your strength is what you should outsource. And of course, if money is an issue, hire them for a smaller amount of time, part-time. Maybe it's 2 hours a month, 2 hours a week, 20 hours a month. Whatever you need to help, figure out what that means for you financially and time-wise, and then just make it happen. Because the sooner you get help, the easier it will be to grow your business, or at least have a better flow in your business, because you will have to train this person, create training materials, think about all that stuff prior to jumping in. Like, being able to explain your job so easy that a third grader can do it is my logic. So early on, when you're first starting out, consider those things while you have the time, versus you are overflowing with business and you don't have time to even train someone, and then the next thing you know, you have so much on your plate that you burn out. Speaking of burnout, this brings me to my next point, which is your mental health. Mental health. This should have been number one, but I saved the best for last. Mental health upkeep and maintenance is so important and so necessary. It's not always going to be the most perfect or fun journey to be on, or most comfortable journey to be on, but it is very necessary, because you cannot go into entrepreneurship with a 9-to-5 mindset. You will be sacrificing a lot of time. The opportunity cost of choosing this new lifestyle is completely different from the 9-to-5 schedule. You show up, turn it back on, you leave, it's done. You leave it behind those doors. After you've locked the door, you're done. With entrepreneurship, you go from a 9-to-5 to a 24/7, to be honest. And if you apply some of the steps I've mentioned earlier, of course you may not be working that many hours, but there will be days where you will find yourself working more than usual, or you find yourself stuck in a certain predicament that you've never encountered before. So it's important that you have the tools and the resources available to you to reach for when you are in those moments where you want to give up, or when you want to stop, or you want to quit. So it's important that you communicate to those around you that, hey, I'm going to need help, or hey, I'm going to need these certain hours for me where my door is closed and I'm just focused on the business. Creating a new schedule and letting everyone know in your life that this is the new way, this is what I'm doing. And you may have to compromise, you may have to readjust and negotiate those things, but that's why you communicate these things early, so that no one is being blindsided, or no one gets frustrated when things change all of a sudden and they weren't warned. You have to consider everyone's mental triggers and their mental health as well. I understand this is your choice in your business to do things, and you should definitely follow through and not let anything stop you. But I think it's important to not burn any bridges along the way, or create a lifestyle that doesn't include those that you love. I think it's important that we build a community within the household, within our network of colleagues and coworkers or friends, and in some way, shape, or form incorporate everyone in the journey as well, to make for a more easeful, wherever direction you choose to go, everyone is aware and there aren't any surprises. Unless you want to surprise them with something good, then do what you got to do. But ultimately, those are the 5 things I wish I knew prior to starting a business, and I hope that they helped you, or will help you, or are helping you. If there are any suggestions that you have that I may not have discussed in this episode, please comment them below. People are watching and reading the comments, and we are building a community together. Share what you have experienced in your life, or what has helped you in your journey. Or if you have any questions, I'm more than willing to answer them either in the comments or in a separate video, to not just help you, but as well, I'm pretty sure if you have a question or concern in your life or your business, someone else does as well. So I'm here to help. I care. I do care for your well-being in your journey in this business, in this industry. It is not easy. It is very intense. It is very fast. And I definitely wish I had an additional support system or mentor or coach early on in my business. But sometimes you just have to figure things out on your own, make the mistakes, fail, but keep going, keep trying, don't give up. You will get through this, and you will find what you are truly passionate about in this process, and I guarantee you will live in your purpose and do well. With all of that said, please hit that like, share, comment, subscribe, follow button wherever you are watching and or listening to. I truly appreciate it. I know how valuable each and every one of our time is, and how precious time is. So the fact that you found me, you clicked on my episode, you watched it, you made it to this part of the video, I truly, truly, truly appreciate it. And if I can help or be a resource to you of any sort, please comment below, message me, DM me on all social media platforms. As I mentioned before, it is at Transaction Care on all social media platforms, at symbol Transaction Care. Simple as that. And until the next episode, your time is worth it. Let's coordinate.